Hey everyone, this episode of the What Are We Watching podcast is brought to you by my friends, Chibi Kadama. Now, Chibi Kadama is a kindie band. What's a kindie band? Well, it's a kid indie band. And it's really a family band. It's a dad and his 5 kids that travel around doing awesome music for kids. But here's the catch. It's not just for kids. You know how you have to listen to that horrible Kids Bop CD while you're driving around in your minivan? Well, stop it. It sucks. Listen to Chibi Kadama. You can get free music from Chibi Kadama at chibikadamamusic.com, or you can drop us a message below and I am giving away free Chibi Kadama music and logo stickers to slap on your van. That way you can say, hey, I listen to music that's way better than that Kids Bop you're having to listen to. Check out Chibi Kadama. It's awesome. It's a family band. It's like a Partridge Family, but the music's new and good. Check out chibikadamamusic.com.
Yeah, Colin turns on the TV, Christian flips off the screen, cause there's no good children's shows that he's seen. We've got dogs with blogs, superheroes in the ER. All dads are dumb and kids have better PR. Colin just smile, Christian sits with the scowl. He complains to his son, all the kids show suck now. They sit and discuss the show's plus and minuses while you listen or watch on YouTube to the arguments. Who is right? Is it the son or the dad? Either way you get to laugh knowing Christian is mad. So pull up a chair, get the corner poppin'. Here's a new episode of What Are We Watching?
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for the What Are We Watching podcast, where I watch kid shows with my dad. He thinks they're horrible, but they're not.
Well, if they're not horrible, what are they?
Great.
Right. You did a great job on the intro. We do watch shows together that are horrible.
No.
You nailed it. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us for the What Are We Watching podcast. Now, if you watched last week, I had a special co-host, my 7-year-old daughter, Melina B. She was co-hosting because we were watching her favorite show, PBS's Odd Squad. And it has her favorite star, Millie Davis, who plays Miss O. And I told you in that podcast that we were going to be speaking to Millie Davis. And guess what? Over Memorial Day weekend, we did. We got some FaceTime via Skype with Millie and even a couple minutes with her mom. And we were able to ask her some really great questions about what it's like to be a kid actor and star in a kid's show like Odd Squad, or in an adult show like Orphan Black, where she also stars. So you need to check out that interview with Odd Squad's Millie Davis. It's going to be out next Wednesday on a special episode of the What Are We Watching podcast. Okay, Carla, now what did we watch for What Are We Watching this week?
Walk the Prank.
Okay, now Walk the Prank is a weird show, right? Like, it's hard to describe the show, because normally what we watch are scripted shows, right?
Yes.
And sometimes we've thrown in an animated show, but normally it's a scripted show. Well, I was flipping through the channels one day, and I saw the show, and it looked like a kid's prank show. And I was like, okay, and I watched one of the pranks. It went to commercial, I flipped past. Then, in the same half hour, I flipped back through that channel, and all of a sudden I was watching a scripted show, and I was like, what the what? What am I watching? And I thought, this is perfect for our podcast. So it's a scripted show and a prank show. Now, I want to believe that the pranks are not scripted, right? Like,
yes.
That's the point. You want to think that the prankee really got pranked. But I don't know, because reality TV shows kind of burned me lately. I have found out that some of those shows are fake, and people are in on the prank. That would be a bummer. So I'm going to assume that the people weren't in on the prank. But it starts out with a prank, then it goes to scripted, then a prank, then scripted. Very weird show. So why don't you walk everybody through the first prank on what they did on Walk the Prank?
There was a boy, and he was talking to a mannequin, tricking this new employee. He's like, Mom, we have to go and stuff. And the employee kept saying, I'm sorry, this is not your mom. Maybe we can find your mom. Sorry, this is not your mom. And then they bring her into a storage room.
Right.
And then they switch out the mannequin with the real person who looks just like it. And then the lady comes back out and the kid is saying the same thing. And then the lady says, "I'm sorry, but this is really not your mom." And then she's like, "Don't talk to my son like that."
Yeah. Don't you dare talk
just
to my
scares
son that
her.
way, and scares the employee. So that was pretty funny.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then it cuts to commercial. And they always say, "You just walked the plank," which is like walk the plank. I mean, it feels a little feels a little forced, but okay. It's hard to come up with a show name for a prank show. Okay, now here's the scene that had us laughing. We ended up watching the show with your mom was in the room with us, and your sister wasn't in the room, or your little brother, but we called them down and rewound it because that's
Yes.
how much we like this scene. So this is the cafeteria scene. Now, you should have watched the show because every week we have a mini episode on Wednesday to tell you what we're going to be watching the next Wednesday for our full show. You really should watch the show. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if you paused this right now and went and watched this scene and then came back to us because it is epic. So the cafeteria scene, what are they talking about in the cafeteria scene at the beginning?
About the clubs that they chose.
Yeah, they chose clubs to go to school. One kid wanted to be in TV club because he thought it was going to be watching TV. And then his friend goes, "No, it's not watching TV." And he's like, "Man, these people really need to name their clubs better."
Yes.
Okay, and then there was the girl that was, what was she doing? A pet club or something? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so here's the funniest part of the show. Was their friend Herman was joining what club?
The wrestling club.
Okay, now they said to each other, well, first he walks in the room. Why don't you try to describe what happens with Herman?
Okay, so Herman walks in the room yelling, "Yeah, Herminator!" Slams down a mini boombox, and like it has the intro. He's like, "Whoa!" And he's like tries to rip his shirt. He's
Okay, you missed a key point, though. This kid can't weigh 80 pounds.
No, he cannot.
Can't. He cannot weigh 80 pounds. I'd be shocked if he weighed 60 pounds. He's little. He's trying to rip his shirt. His hair's spiked up. He's got makeup on his eyes. He's trying to rip his shirt. It doesn't work, so he ends up pulling it over his head, which he's got a vest on. Then he tries to lift the table. And for those of you watching the video version of the podcast, Carlin's going to do his face, what it looked like. So he tries to lift the table, can't do that, and then he goes to put his special secret move onto his friend. What was his secret move called?
The boa constrictor of doom.
The boa constrictor of doom. Of which his friend just stands up from the lunch table and walks out of the cafeteria holding his friend with his friend wrapped around his leg. It was funny. We laughed about. I rewound it and watched it 3 times. The Herminator made this show for me, so I guess you can always already get a clue about whether I like the show or not. But based on this one scene, it could have been garbage the whole other show, and I would have loved it. So then his friend said, "Should we tell Herman that school wrestling club isn't like TV wrestling?" And they're like, "Nah, let's see how this plays out." So that was pretty funny. I will say that's about as funny as the show ever got, but it was hilarious. Okay, so what was the second prank that they did?
Wasn't the second prank the actually wrestling one?
Yeah, it was actually wrestling, where they pretended that they were needing a babysitter, and the dad said, "Hey, guy, you have to really watch the kids. They kind of fool around too much. They tend to get too rambunctious and break stuff, and you need to watch them." And the guy they were pranking is into pro wrestling, apparently. They give a little story. Oh, his friends got him on the show, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? So what happens with the prank?
So they turn on the wrestling show, and they start watching, and they start doing it and breaking the rules that their dad said not to be wrestling and stuff.
And the babysitter has no control, even though he's like a 30-year-old guy. He has absolutely no control over these kids.
And it's like when one guy breaks the lamp accidentally, he's like, "Okay, guys, stop."
Yeah, chill out.
And then the dad walks in. He's like, "Oh, well, Marvin, this is what I warned you about."
Yeah.
And he's like, "It's okay, guys. Just
Do better.
Yeah, just do better.
Yeah.
And
then before he leaves, he says, or him or the babysitter, I'm not
what's the
sure.
rule I told you? And he's like,
he said, wrestling's not real.
yes, wrestling is not real.
And then the wrestlers that they're watching on TV go, hey, what did you just say? Did you say wrestling's not real? And then, boom!
They burst through the wall and start running, like, and they slam the dad on the table.
Yeah,
like,
they lift the dad up, throw him on the table.
And Mara was like, oh my gosh.
This guy's freaking out. And then, of course, they have to go, you walked the prank. And then he saw his friend come in. He knew he got. And he also told the kids, you were great actors, which I'm not sure if that's true, but, it was pretty funny. So they were 2 for 2. That's a pretty good prank, especially following the wrestling theme with the Herminator. So I gotta say, though, the writers are good on the show. I hope that the pranks are fake. So what were the other pranks that they showed?
The one with the substitute and the gorilla.
Okay, that was the last one. They also showed some more mannequin pranks.
Oh, yeah.
Like going to
with
commercial.
More employees.
Yeah. Okay, then we have some more scripted shows or scenes.
Yes. Oh, that reminds me. This really funny part where the black kid who does pranks too, he's like, okay, we need some good storylines here. Who's got one?
Okay, so they're doing these clubs still, and the kid's in the TV club, but he's basically turned it into TMZ, which is a show that you don't know what it is because it's totally inappropriate for you to watch. But it's like a show where they try to get people caught on camera doing horrible things and talk bad about them and stuff like that. Okay, so what did one of the female reporters bring to the TMZ table? What juicy dish did she have?
She caught the teacher beefing.
What the heck is beefing?
Farting.
I think she said, teacher so-and-so been over in class and totally beefed.
And they're like following her through the hall because she got a video. And she's like, please leave me alone. And I totally did not beef.
I did not beef. And he's like, I want you following that butt for the rest of the day. And then one of the other friends is trying to campaign for, like, I don't know, school president, school, whatever.
No homework.
He's campaigning for no homework. He said, if they can't teach me in the 7 hours they have me, then I shouldn't have to do homework.
I agree with him.
Yeah, the other kid was like, preach.
Totally.
And when I was a kid, I felt the same way. Like, if you can't teach me in 7 hours, then why do I have to do homework? But now that I have kids, I'm like, shut up, do your homework.
I think homework is just boring.
Well, it is, but you got to do it. All you kids out there, please do, whatever. That's your parents' problem. All right, so what was the final prank? We had a prank with the mannequin. We had them trying to get their Uncle Will to make a face, which that was actually scripted. That wasn't reality. Then we had the Herminator, which was awesome. We had the wrestling prank. We had the kids trying to start TMZ at school and get no homework and catching teachers beefing. What did they wrap it up with? What was the final prank?
A substitute teacher with a gorilla.
Okay, so they had a substitute teacher, and they said it was zoo day at the school. And then the principal kind of comes in and is like, we've had an incident. There is an animal loose in the school. Don't tell the kids. Don't tell the kids. And then the animal trainer comes in and says they're loose in the school. So she's fine. She's cool, trying to keep the kids calm. And then she slowly goes into madness, doesn't she? As she starts to get get worried.
Her face, it just starts to change a little bit.
Yeah, it starts. You can see her deteriorate into madness. And this was the one that I thought, if all of them were if they were all fake.
Because she's telling the kids.
Yeah, she was telling the kids, which she shouldn't have done. But then she saw the gorilla outside, so she's holding the door, right? And it can't come in. So it's a guy in a gorilla mask. And then this was the craziest part. They have a gorilla burst through an inside door or wall in the school. And she opens the door and runs out and closes the door on the kids. She basically sacrificed the kids. Did you notice that?
She just abandoned them.
She's like, peace, I'm out. Deal with it yourselves. I don't get paid enough as a sub. Screw this. And she was gone. And they got her outside and they're like, haha, you walked the prank. And I'm like, if she's a real teacher and that was a real prank, you need to fire her toot sweet. You need to fire her right now because that woman will sacrifice children. She don't care. She's afraid of gorillas. A gorilla comes, she's going. That's what gorilla means to her. Okay, so what do you rate this show from 1 being the worst, 10 being the best? How would you rate Walk the Prank?
I'm already going to say a 10.
A 10? That's a solid. Okay, here's my question. If you had to rate just the pranks 1 to 10 and you had to rate just the scripted show 1 to 10, would you give them different rankings or would they both be 10s?
There would be a 8 for the pranks, but the scripted 9 because of the Herminator. That was so funny.
So how does that add up to a 10? So that's an 8.5.
Yes, 8.5 then.
You
I want
really
it to
love
be
the
a
show.
10 though.
You
Yes.
just want it to be a 10. Okay, he's on board for a 10. Okay, I'm going to give it a really good score because I really like... look, the scripted stuff was nonsense, but here's the thing I loved about the scripted stuff in this show. It was broken apart. I think that some of these shows kind of stink because they don't really have a good premise for a half an hour. And, you know, we talk about it a lot of time. There's an A story, a B story, a C story. They were able to split up one story into 3 pieces. They were talking about the clubs at school. They talked about it turned into the TMZ and the beefing and all that kind of stuff. But it didn't get overwhelming because they were able to pop this stuff in between. And I kind of really dug that. It's the reason Sesame Street works for so many years. It hasn't changed since I was a kid to when you're a kid. They do a little sketch, and if it doesn't work really good, it doesn't matter because they're on to the next thing.
Oh,
Just
wow.
like Saturday Night Live for adults. If one sketch bombs, it doesn't matter. You're on to a next sketch. Well, they're able to interject these pranks in the sketches. It makes the sketches better, or the scripted part better. And the pranks, to me, seem better, too, because they were able to tie it into the scripted show, like the wrestling.
Yes.
Okay. That's really the only one that ties into the show. But in the scripted part, they're also talking about pranking their Uncle Will, who's, I don't know, not their uncle or whatever. So I did like that they kept saying, Uncle Will got. But anyway. So I'm actually going to give this I'm going to give both of them 8s. And honestly, I'll give Herminator a 15 because it's just so silly and awesome to see this, like, 60-pound little kid trying to lift a cafeteria table, trying to rip his shirt off, the eye makeup, the hair. I mean, he brings in the little, like, Bluetooth boombox, and it's like, dum, 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 Herminator, you are gonna see the Herminator. That kid is perfection. I will watch that kid on any show, anytime. I will watch 30 minutes, an hour of him. I could have watched him for an hour trying to lift that table and the little veins straining on his neck. He's like,
Eventually, like, sticks out his tongue.
So I'm giving a ridiculous score like you. You gave an 8.5 for the pranks and a 9 for the scripted, but a 10 show. I'm giving 8s for both the pranks and the scripted, but I'm giving Herminator a 15 because why not? All right, guys, thank you for watching the What Are We Watching podcast. Don't forget, go into the comment section below and just leave a comment. What'd you like about the show? What'd you hate about the show? We have Amazon gift cards to give away, DS gift cards, but more importantly, our sponsor, Chibi Kadama, has some CDs, there we go, and stickers to give you, our listeners, because they love our podcast, and I love their music. So check out chibikadamamusic.com, and we'd love to give some of these away free. Just leave us a comment below. Anything to say to our viewers, listeners?
Watch the Herminator about 50 times.
Watch the Herminator 50 times. Don't forget next week's special episode, our interview with Millie Davis, star of Odd Squad. Check it out. We will see and talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This production is brought to you by the Plaid Dad Blog Podcast Network. For more information, visit plaiddadblog.com.